In the biblical context, before the Great Flood, the earth was corrupt and full of violence. Humanity had turned away from the voices of God, giving in to sin and evil. The Bible describes this state of depravity in Genesis 65. The Lord saw that the wickedness of men was great on earth, and that all the thoughts of their hearts were continually directed toward evil. God, seeing the widespread corruption, decided to purify the earth with a universal flood. Distinguished in the midst of this wicked generation for his justice and integrity, the Bible describes him as a just and perfect man in his generations. Someone who walked with God. Noah was a just and perfect man in his generations. Noah walked with God. Genesis 69. This description indicates that Noah had an intimate and constant relationship with God, living a life that pleased the Lord. His faith and obedience made him worthy of being chosen by God for an extraordinary mission. God revealed to Noah his plan to destroy all flesh by flood, but he also gave him detailed instructions for building an ark that would save his family and a remnant of all living creatures. Make yourself an ark of goph, which you shall make rooms in the ark and cover it with pitch inside and out. Genesis 61. Building the ark was a monumental task that required faith, perseverance, and skill. God gave Noah specific dimensions and instructions on how to build the ark, ensuring that it would be able to house all those who would be on board during the flood. Noah obeyed all of God's instructions, carefully demonstrating his unwavering faith and trust in the divine plan. Noah did what he did according to all that God had commanded him. Genesis 6 verse 22. When the construction of the ark was completed, God commanded Noah to enter the ark with his family and the selected animals. And the Lord said to Noah, "Come into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen you right before me in this generation." Genesis 7 verse 1. Then Noah, his wife, his sons Ham and Japheth, and their wives, with parents of every species of animal, entered the ark. God closed the door of the ark, and the waters of the flood began to fall, covering the entire earth and destroying all flesh outside the ark. For 40 days and 40 nights it rained incessantly, and the waters prevailed on the earth for 150 days. The ark floated on the waters, preserving Noah, his family, and animals. Finally, the UAE began to shrink, and the ark landed on the mountains of Ararat. After a while, Noah sent a dove to check if the UAE had shrunk. When the dove returned with an olive leaf, Noah knew the earth was habitable again. When the US finally withdrew, God commanded Noah to leave the ark and repopulate the earth. Go out, go, you, your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives with you. Genesis 8:16. Noah, in gratitude and reverence, built a hotel and offered sacrifices to God. In response, he blessed Noah and his family and made a covenant with them, promising never again to destroy the earth with a flood. And God said that this is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you, and between all living souls that are with you for all generations. I have set my bow in the cloud. This will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Genesis 9:12-13. So Noah and his family were chosen by God to survive the flood because of their righteousness, and God blessed Noah and his sons and told them to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. Genesis 91. With this blessing, Noah became the root of a new humanity. Each of his sons was responsible for giving rise to different peoples and nations. The mission given by God to Noah's son after the flood was clear: to repopulate the earth and extend his lineages into different regions. Each son was given a distinct area to populate, starting with Shem. Shem, the firstborn, is often associated with the Middle East and is considered the ancestor of mythological peoples, including the Hebrews and the Arabs. The Bible highlights the lineage of Shem for its spiritual and historical importance, as it is from Abraham, the patriarch of the people of Israel. God promised Abraham that in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. Genesis 123. The mission of Shem and his descendants was crucial to the development of great civilizations and religious traditions that still influence the modern world. The Bible says, "And to the son of Shem, Etam, Assur, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram, and the sons of Aram, Hul, Watch, and Machik." Genesis 10 verses 22 and 23. These names resonate throughout history, reflecting the lasting influence of the cultures that emerged from this lineage. Japhet, the second son, was given the mission to repopulate regions of Europe and parts of Asia. His descendants are often associated with various European and Asian nations, reflecting the expansion and diversity of cultures that emerged in these regions. Magog Madai, Javan, Tubal Machik, and Tiras Genesis 10:2. These names indicate a vast geographic spread reflecting the diversity of cultures and civilizations that arose under the lineage of Japheth. The Bible also says that God enlarges Japheth and that he dwells in the tents of Shem and that Canaan is his servant. Genesis 9:27. This verse highlights not only the blessing of Japheth, but also the interconnectedness between the lines of Noah's sons, each playing a unique role. In the tapestry of human history, Cham, the third son, had a special designation representing the regions of Africa. The Cham lineage is of particular interest to the history of African peoples because its descendants gave birth to numerous ancient African civilizations. The Bible lists the sons of Cham and the sons of Cham as Misrai and Canaan in Genesis 1:06. These names are synonymous with great African nations and cultures, and each of them contributed significantly to the formation of African identities and traditions that we know today. The sons of Noah, with their distinct mission, drew a map of repopulation that reflected the diversity and richness of God's creation. The blessings and responsibilities that he received from Noah were at the same time a privilege and a great responsibility. Each son and his descendants fulfilled their role in the reconstruction of the post-flood world, establishing cultural and spiritual foundations that endure to this day. Each of them left a remarkable mark on biblical history and on the formation of the peoples and nations that the Bible tells us about. The sons of Cham as Misrai and Canaan in Genesis 1:06. These descendants are fundamental to understanding the origin and spread of African peoples and other civil ancient. We begin our exploration with the CCH, whose descendants are associated with the regions of Ethiopia and Sudan, having hosted powerful and influential cultures. The Kuch is often remembered as the father of the Ethiopian and Nubian peoples, having played crucial roles in African history. One of the most notable descendants of the Kuch was Nimrod, known for his strength and leadership skills. The Bible records that in Nimrod, he began to be powerful on earth. Genesis 1:08. Nimrod is credited with founding great cities such as Babel, Erech-Akkad, and Calne, all located in the land of China. Its history is closely linked to the construction of the Tower of Babel, a story that illustrates linguistic diversity and the dispersion of nations. Tower of Babel is one of the most fascinating stories in the Bible. Noah's descendants, led by Nimrod, decided to build a city and a tower that would reach the heavens, thus defying the divine order to disperse and repopulate the earth. God, seeing the arrogance of men, confused their languages and scattered them over the face of the earth. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth, and from there he scattered them all over the face of the earth. Genesis 1:19. This event marked the beginning of the multiplicity of languages and cultures, emphasizing the importance of obedience to God. Misrai, another son of Ham, is associated with the ancient Egyptians. Egypt, with its rich history and culture, is one of the most fascinating civilizations of the ancient world mentioned in the Bible, and the sons of Misraim, Ludim, Anamim, Labim, Naphtuim, Patrusim, Kaslam, from whom came the Philistines and Creorim. Genesis 10:13-14. Egypt is famous for its contributions in various fields including architecture, medicine, and writing. The pyramids, for example, bear witness to the skill and ingenuity of the Egyptians. The Egyptian civilization also played a significant role in biblical history, interacting frequently with the people of Israel, but the first son of Ham are less detailed in the scriptures, but it is believed that his descendants settled in parts of Africa, including the Horn of Africa, although there is less biblical information about P. His lineage is, however, important to understand the spread of the African peoples. Finally, we have Canaan, whose descendants settled in the land that would come to be known by the name of Canaan, a region of great biblical importance, but not directly linked to the African people. And Canaan generated Sidon, their eldest, and Genesis 10:15. Before continuing, it is important to clarify a curious fact known as the Curse of Canaan that many incorrectly associate with the African people. The story of the Curse of Canaan is the most intriguing and at the same time misunderstood story in the Bible. After the flood, Noah, a man of the land, began to cultivate a vineyard when the wine was ready Noah in the drink, and without realizing it found himself drunk in his state of drunk. He stripped naked inside his tent. This seemingly simple scene set off a chain of events that would lead to one of the most talked about curses in the Bible. Ham, one of Noah's 3 sons, saw his father naked in the tent, instead of covering Noah or acting discreetly. Ham went out and told his brothers Shem and Japheth about his father's condition. Shem and Japheth, showing respect and sensitivity, took a coat and put it on his shoulders and walked backwards, so as not to see his father's nakedness, covered Noah. This attitude contrasts sharply with that of Ham, showing a clear difference in behavior and filial respect. When Noah woke up from his wine and learned what his youngest son had done, he uttered a curse. Noah said, "Cursed be Canaan, he will be a slave to his brother's slaves." Genesis 9:25. It is interesting to note that the curse was not directed directly at Ham, but at his son Canaan. This detail is significant and has been the subject of numerous interpretations as to the exact reason why Noah chose to curse Canaan instead of Ham is not explicitly detailed in the Bible. Some scholars suggest that it may reflect a prophetic understanding of the future role of Canaan's descendants in relation to those of Shem and Japheth. The curse of Canaan has raised many questions. Theological and historical questions. This detail is crucial because throughout history this curse has been wrongly used to justify the enslavement of African peoples, although the Bible does not support such a thing. Interpretation: the curse, as described, was a prophecy concerning the future submission of the Canaanites to the nations descended from Shem and Japheth. This distinction is essential to avoid historical and theological errors. In the biblical context, the curse of Canaan manifested itself through the conquest of Canaan by the Israelites. The land of Canaan, located in what is now Israel and Palestine, was inhabited by several Canaanite tribes. God had promised this land to the descendants of Abraham, and the conquest of Canaan under Joshua was seen as the fulfillment of this promise. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so that they may know that as I was with Moses, I will be with you." Joshua 37. This event highlighted the fulfillment of Noah's prophecy concerning Canaan. The misinterpretations of the curse of Canaan over the centuries have had devastating consequences. During the colonial period, this account has been distorted to justify slavery and racism, falsely claiming that all descendants of Ham were cursed. It is crucial to debunk this false belief and understand the true biblical context. The curse of Canaan was not applied to all of Ham's descendants, but specifically to the Canaanites, and its application was realized in biblical history through the conquest of Canaan. Understanding the curse of Canaan correctly helps us appreciate God's justice and wisdom, avoiding historical distortions. The biblical narrative does not support the idea of a generalized racial or ethnic curse. On the contrary, it highlights specific justice in the context of individual and family actions. And the Lord is righteous in all his ways and holy in all his works. Psalm 145, verse 17. This correct understanding is vital for reconciliation and for promoting a biblical reading that respects the dignity of all people. Ham, one of Noah's sons, lived at a time when longevity was a defining characteristic of human beings. The Bible gives us fascinating insight into the longevity of the patriarchs, suggesting that pre-flood conditions allowed for lives that spanned several centuries. Although the Bible does not explicitly mention Ham's age when he died, it is reasonable to assume that he, like his brothers, lived a long and influential. The longevity of Ham and his brothers Shem and Japheth may have been attributed to several factors, including God's blessing on Noah and his family after the flood, and God's blessing on Noah and his sons, and telling them to be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth in Genesis 91. This blessing not only gave them the responsibility of repopulating the earth, but also appears to have prolonged their lives, allowing them to witness the growth of their families and nations. Ham's long life allowed him to see the development of civilization and culture that emerged from his descendants, including the Ethiopians, Egyptians, and Canaanites. Ham's burial place is a subject of mystery and speculation, although the Bible does not provide specific details as to where he was buried. Ancient traditions and extra-biblical accounts suggest possible locations. One popular theory is that Ham was buried in Africa, possibly in Sudan or Ethiopia, regions associated with his descendants. These areas are rich in ancient traditions and monuments that may be linked to the biblical patriarchs. Another theory suggests that Ham may have been buried in Egypt, given the significant role of his descendants, the Egyptians. In ancient history, Egypt, being one of the oldest and most enduring civilizations, has a rich tradition of burial practices and monuments that date back to ancient times. Ancient pyramids and tombs in the Valley of the Kings testify to the importance that the Egyptians placed on the afterlife. If Ham was indeed buried in Egypt, his tomb could be found among these grand monuments. The Bible gives us clues about the importance of burials in Egyptian culture. And Joseph made the children of Israel swear that God will surely visit them, and you will carry my ossymens from here. Genesis 50:25, reflecting the deep connection between the patriarchs and Egypt, as well as theories about his burial. Jewish and Christian traditions mention Ham in several apocryphal texts and midrashim that offer additional insights into his life and death. The Book of Jubilees, for example, tells of the life of Ham and his disagreement with the choice of Canaan to inhabit the land of Shem, and the land was divided into parts among the sons of Noah as the Lord had said, and they cast lots for their share. Jubilee 810. These traditions, although non-canonical, enrich our understanding of the complex relationships and legacies of the civilization of the biblical patriarchs. Own cultural identities around these stories, reinterpreting them in a way that resonates with their own experiences and historical contexts. In Ethiopia, the descendants of Cush are celebrated in a rich tradition of myth and legend. The story of the Queen of Sheba and her encounter with King Solomon is one of the best known according to Ethiopian tradition. The Queen of Sheba, also known as Makeda, went to Jerusalem to test Solomon's wisdom. The Bible begins to relate the visit of the Queen of Sheba in 1 Kings 10 verse 12. The Queen of Sheba, having heard of Solomon's fame regarding the name of the Lord, came to test him with difficult questions. She arrived in Jerusalem with a large suite of camels laden with spices, very great treasures and precious stones. She came to Solomon and spoke to him about everything that was in her heart. The arrival of the queen was grand, with a procession that reflected the opulence and prestige of her kingdom. She brought with her precious gifts, symbolizing respect and appreciation for Solomon's fame. Solomon. During her meeting with Solomon, the queen asked several difficult and enigmatic questions, wanting to see if his wisdom lived up to his reputation. Solomon, known for his God-given wisdom, answered all of the queen's questions with great discernment and clarity. Solomon gave answers to all of these questions. There was nothing that the king could not explain to her. 1 King 1:03. The queen was impressed not only by Solomon's answers, but also by the magnificence of his palace, the organization of his kingdom, and the devotion of the people of Israel to their God. The Bible tells us that the Queen of the Sabbath was amazed before there was wisdom and the achievements of Solomon, and she said to the king, "It is true what I have heard in my country about your deeds and your wisdom, but I did not believe these words until I came and my eyes saw them. And behold, they were not told to me. Half you surpass in wisdom and good the fame I heard." King 1067. In Egypt, the stories of the descendants of Misraim are deeply rooted in ancient Egyptian mythology and traditions. The Egyptians developed a complex pantheon of god and legend reflecting their belief and historical experience. The interaction between the Hebrews and the Egyptians, as narrated in Exodus, is a significant part of the biblical story, and Moses tells the people to be not afraid. "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. He will do for you today. For the Egyptians, what you have seen today, you will never see again." Exodus 14:13. This story of deliverance and miracle is not only celebrated in the Jewish tradition, but also influenced Egyptian interpretations of interactions with the people of Israel in the Horn of Africa. Traditions associated with the descendants of Cush also have their own variations, and although less documented, the peoples of this region incorporated elements of the biblical stories into their own histories and oral traditions. The influence of migration and cultural exchange has helped shape a rich legacy of myths that intertwine with biblical stories that reflect the adaptation and resilience of African cultures. Canaanite traditions, although not directly linked to African peoples, have also influenced regional mythologies. The Canaanites, with their city-states and religious practices, left a mark significant in the history of the region that today includes Israel and Palestine. The Bible highlights the complex relationship between conquest and coexistence, and the children of Israel lived among the Canaanites, The Hittites, the Amorites, the Pharesians, the Vians, and the Jebusites believed that this sometimes tense cohabitation contributed to a rich cultural and religious exchange.